Welcome to the Restricted Handling Daily Intel Brief. Let's dig in. Here's what's been going on in Russia in the last 24 hours. Europe continues to tighten the screws on Moscow. The EU's proposed 21st sanctions package now targets Russian banks, crypto networks, oil traders, and refiners, while adding 30 more shadow fleet tankers to its blacklist. For the first time, the bloc is also moving to ban entry for anyone who has served in the Russian armed forces since the war began. That's a clear signal. Europe is restricting the Kremlin's ability to deploy its human and financial capital beyond its borders. Russia's energy sector is feeling the pinch. Ukrainian attacks on refineries and fuel infrastructure have forced Moscow to funnel nearly $10 billion in state subsidies over April and May to keep the system operational. Refinery output is down, gasoline prices are climbing, and panic buying has appeared in southern regions and Crimea. Fuel supply is no longer just a civilian inconvenience. It directly impacts Russia's capacity to sustain operations along the front and in occupied territories. Crimea, in particular, is grappling with logistics headaches. Fuel rationing, with 20-liter limits and QR-coded allocations, is in place across Sevastopol. Ukrainian operations continue to disrupt the land routes from the Russian mainland, and evidence has emerged that Russian forces are now moving fuel using civilian trucks disguised as ordinary vehicles. Civilian involvement in military logistics increases both operational risk and the potential for Ukrainian strikes to impact movement. Ukraine's domestic efforts continue to scale. Lawmakers approved budget amendments for 2026, allocating an additional $34.7 billion for defense and security, bringing the total planned defense spending to just over $97 billion. This funding is bolstered by a €90 billion EU loan secured from frozen Russian assets, creating a solid financial backbone for long-term drone operations, weapons production, and logistics-focused strikes. Zelensky is exporting Ukraine's wartime expertise into European defense networks. A drone cooperation deal with Latvia was signed during his visit to Tallinn, making Latvia the sixth partner in Kyiv's regional initiative. Ukrainian specialists will deploy immediately to assist with anti-drone operations, training, and co-production of defense technologies. This reinforces not only European readiness, but also Ukraine's leverage in alliance politics, showing that battlefield success translates into regional influence. Russia's internal security environment remains fragile. A car bombing in Balashikha killed Colonel Damir Davidov, the head of the Artillery and Missile Ammunition Supply Directorate. This comes less than a mile from where Lieutenant General Moskalik was killed last year, exposing gaps in the Kremlin's ability to protect high-value personnel. Separately, authorities report foiled plots involving teenagers allegedly linked to Ukrainian intelligence, demonstrating that operational and domestic threats are intersecting in new ways. On the geopolitical front, Moscow is seeking to preserve influence even as it faces setbacks. Russian authorities pushed narratives challenging Armenian election legitimacy after Prime Minister Pashinyan's party won just under 50% of the vote. The Kremlin suggested potential economic consequences, signaling that it remains vigilant in maintaining sway over post-Soviet neighbors. In the Baltics, Russian messaging continues to undermine confidence in NATO's Article 5 guarantees, portraying the alliance as hesitant to act, even as Kyiv exports drone expertise and builds regional defense cooperation. Russia is also recalibrating its global footprint. Discussions with Syria's new president, Ahmed al-Sharaa, point to a reformatting of the Mimim airbase and Tartus naval facility. Tartus remains Moscow's only Mediterranean repair and resupply hub, while Mimim supports Russian operations in Africa. Even while facing pressures in Ukraine, Russia is working to maintain forward-basing capabilities, showing its global strategic ambitions persist. Ukraine's battlefield strategy continues to focus on Russian logistics rather than just frontline gains. Strikes targeting roads, railways, depots, and fuel supplies are forcing Moscow to slow movement, ration fuel, and reroute transport. The effect is systemic. Russian units are stretched thin, rotations are disrupted, and supply bottlenecks reduce operational tempo. These actions allow Ukraine to achieve localized tactical gains while applying broader strategic pressure. While Russia continues offensive actions across multiple sectors, progress is uneven. Ukrainian forces have reported advances in areas like Borova and Kostiantynivka-Drushkivka, while Russian units increasingly rely on infiltration tactics and non-infantry personnel for assaults. May saw Russia record its slowest monthly territorial gains since 2023, highlighting the operational strain the Kremlin is under, despite its efforts to project control. Ukraine also faces ongoing vulnerabilities, particularly in port and export infrastructure. Russian attacks on the Odessa port hub threaten critical grain and sunflower oil exports, which are central to Ukraine's wartime revenue. Disrupted terminals, overfilled storage, and financial strain on farmers could have knock-on effects for global food supply if not addressed. This underlines that while Ukraine is advancing technologically and operationally, the strategic balance still depends on protecting its economic and logistical lifelines. Bulgaria is emerging as a wild card in alliance support. The newly appointed defense minister, Dimitar Stoyanov, announced that Sofia will halt arms transfers to Ukraine and called for negotiations between Moscow and Kiev. Bulgaria previously contributed anti-tank missiles, armored vehicles, mortars, and other weapons. This shift could influence Black Sea dynamics, particularly when combined with Ukraine's growing European partnerships. In short, the strategic picture today shows a multi-layered contest. Europe is applying economic and diplomatic pressure. Ukraine is leveraging drones and defense industry expertise. Russia is balancing operational, logistical, and global basing challenges, and internal security threats are mounting inside Russia itself. The war's operational and political dimensions are tightly intertwined, and the next moves by both sides are likely to influence not just the battlefield, but the regional security order in Europe and beyond. Thanks for listening. If this was useful, a quick review or comment helps others find the show. For deeper coverage, check out our daily intel brief on Substack at restrictedhandling.substack.com. Have a great day.